This is BBC World News. I'm Regid Ahmed. Our top stories. Several American states pledged to ignore President Trump's move to withdraw the US from the Paris climate change deal. We report from California. The American Secretary of Defense calls North Korea a clear and present danger, but says he's encouraged by China's attempts to help contain the threat. Uncomfortable questions about healthcare and nuclear weapons for the two leaders competing to be Britain's next Prime Minister. And tight security ahead of the European Champions League final later on Saturday. Police are on high alert after recent incidents. Hello and welcome to BBC World News. The White House has defended Donald Trump's decision to pull the US out of the Paris climate agreement. Administration officials say it's now up to other world leaders to decide whether to sit down and negotiate a new deal. Among some of the American states that say they'll simply ignore President Trump is California. It sees its future prosperity dependent on developing clean energy. James Cook reports from Kern County, north of Los Angeles. President of the Marshall Islands there. Now, the US Secretary of Defense has called the threat from North Korea a clear and present danger and says he is encouraged by China's attempts to help contain Pyongyang. But James Mattis, speaking at an international policy forum in Singapore, added that the US will not accept Beijing's militarization of its artificial islands in the South China Sea. From Singapore, Karishma Vaswani reports. Now let's take a look at some of the other stories making the news. Organisers of one of Germany's biggest music festivals hope it will resume in full later after they were forced to evacuate the venue on Friday following what police described as a possible terrorist threat. Fans hoping to see German rock giants Rammstein streamed out of the arena in the city of Nuremberg. The UN Security Council has imposed sanctions on 4 North Korean companies and 14 officials, adding to the pressure on Pyongyang over its repeated ballistic missile launches. The Council voted unanimously to support measures jointly proposed by the United States and China. A leading consumer group in the UK says British Airways should create an automatic compensation system for passengers affected by serious flight delays and cancellations. It comes a week after a major IT failure caused hundreds of the airline's flights to be grounded. The company says it has already taken steps to process claims as speedily as possible. Now, Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn have faced tough questions from a TV audience in a special edition of Question Time. Mrs May faced uncomfortable questions about mental health care and NHS funding, whilst Mr Corbyn was asked repeatedly whether he would use the UK's nuclear deterrent if he became Prime Minister. Vicky Young followed the action for us in York. Well, anti-government protests in northern Morocco have continued for a 7th consecutive day. They've been triggered by the arrest of the leader of the protest movement. Nasser Zefzafi has been charged with threatening national security. It's the worst unrest in the country for several years. Greg Dawson reports. Well, stay with us on BBC World News, still to come. Ahead of her benefit event on Sunday, singer Ariana Grande makes a surprise visit to fans injured in the attack on her Manchester concert. This is BBC World News, the latest headlines. Leaders of several American states and cities have pledged to meet greenhouse gas emissions targets, regardless of President Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement on combating climate change. The American Defense Secretary has called North Korea a clear and present danger, but says he's encouraged by China's attempts to help contain the threat from its nuclear and missile programs. Well, he's Ireland's first openly gay minister, the son of an Indian immigrant, and at the age of 38, Leo Varadkar is now set to be the youngest leader in Europe as Ireland's next Prime Minister. He was voted in tonight as the new leader of Fine Gael, the biggest party in Ireland's ruling coalition, and he'll succeed Enda Kenny. Here's our Ireland correspondent, Chris Buckler. Now, the singer Ariana Grande has visited fans in hospital who were injured in the terror attack at her Manchester concert. The star spent time with young people at a children's hospital in a surprise appearance ahead of a benefit concert in the city on Sunday. Simon Jones reports. BBC's Thomas Morgan. Now, it may seem an unusual way to commemorate the death of a sporting legend, but an Israeli artist has made a tribute to Muhammad Ali out of pita bread to mark the first anniversary of his death. Shalat Ulkan has crafted hundreds of edible images of iconic figures using her bread as a base. Hannah Gelbart went to meet the artist at work in Tel Aviv. It's remarkable what accuracy you can get with pita bread. Well, let's just remind you of our top story. The White House has defended Donald Trump's decision to pull the US out of the Paris Climate Agreement, but several American states pledged to ignore his move to withdraw the US from that deal. Much more on the website. See you soon.